Have you ever wondered what's really at the absolute pinnacle of spiritual practice? You know, if you could achieve some kind of divine state, what would that even look like? Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating text that lays out two ultimate destinies, the celestial immortal and the Buddha.
And really, it all boils down to this single question. When you finally get to the end of the path, what's the ultimate prize? Is it total, absolute, untethered freedom? Or is it infinite, all-encompassing wisdom? These two goals, they pretty much define the very nature of our two subjects.
Okay, so let's jump right into one of the most powerful ideas from our source text. It says the Tin Xian, or the celestial immortal, is someone who never got lost. But the Buddha? In stark contrast, the Buddha is someone who once was lost. And believe me, this one little idea is the key to understanding, well, everything that comes next.
But hang on, before we get into all the ways they're different, we kind of have to go back to the beginning. To really get why their paths split so dramatically, we first have to see where they connect.
And what's so fascinating is that according to this text, they come from the exact same place. Both are described as creations of God, they've evolved from angels, and they represent the highest states a human can possibly achieve. They even live in the same place, the realm of ultimate bliss, and they both have these incredible supernatural powers.
All right, so now that we've got that shared foundation down, let's get to the real heart of the matter. This is the core conflict in their very nature, right? The defining tension between total freedom and strict discipline.
And honestly, it could not be clearer. On one side, you've got the Tianxian, who's described as completely unrestrained and free. And on the other, you have the Buddha, who is bound by cosmic law and has to follow commandments to the letter.
This whole difference plays out in how they use their amazing powers. For the Tianxian, these abilities are basically for fun, for self-entertainment. But for a Buddha, those exact same powers are tools for duty and for responsibility. It's a completely different mindset. And here's a perfect, concrete example of that. A Tianxian who wants to pop back down to the human world for a bit, they can just go, no problem. A Buddha, though, has to be officially dispatched by a higher authority. If they just went on their own, that would be a major violation of heavenly law.
The text really sums up their relationship with the divine creator so perfectly with this. The Tin Xian is God's most beloved, like the favorite kid who gets total freedom. The Buddha, though, is more like the dedicated servant, operating under strict control and carrying this immense responsibility.
So, if their whole relationship with the divine is that different, where do they actually slot into the grand scheme of things? Let's take a look and see how this whole cosmic hierarchy is structured. For the Immortals, the journey is laid out like a super clear 5-step ladder. You start as a ghost immortal, then move up through human and earthly, all the way until you reach the top, the 5th and final rank, the celestial immortal, or Tin Xian. The really important thing here is that it's a finite journey. There's a clear finish line.
But for the Buddha, oh no, the journey isn't some simple ladder. It's this vast, sprawling landscape with 10 distinct levels of achievement.
Yeah, so instead of just 5 ranks, Buddhas are progressing through 10 completely distinct spiritual continents, places like the Lotus Continent and the Kasyapa Continent. This isn't just a longer path, it's way vaster, more layered, and just infinitely more complex on their journey to that ultimate state.
I know, all these ranks and realms can start to feel a little abstract, but our source gives us this fantastic analogy that just makes the core difference crystal clear. It frames the whole thing as a kind of celestial university.
Okay, so think of the Tianqian as the brilliant university graduate. They've done the work, they aced the finals, they've earned their degree, and now they're done. No more obligations. Their time is completely their own, to be spent in joyful self-entertainment.
The Buddha, on the other hand, is the lifelong scholar. For them, graduating university is just the first step. They're absolutely committed to continuing their education, endlessly going after the equivalent of a master's degree, then a PhD, and even postdoc research, all of it in this relentless quest for ultimate wisdom.
So, given these two totally different destinies, the freewheeling graduate versus the lifelong scholar, the text actually offers some advice on which journey someone might want to take. So, how does the author suggest a person choose? Well, they describe the path of the Tianxian as being open to everyone and, frankly, easier. The path of the Buddha, though, is laid out as very difficult and specifically suited for what the source text calls descendants of the dragon, or Eastern peoples. And here is the absolute crucial point that ties this whole thing together.
The author says that a Tianxian is actually a type of Buddha. You can think of them as that university graduate who reached a certain level of enlightenment. They got a Buddha fruit, but then chose to step off the academic track. They picked the path of freedom instead of continuing that endless pursuit of higher and higher wisdom.
Which, brings us right back to that central question. If you reach that divine crossroads, what would you choose for your eternity? Perfect, joyful freedom, or the profound, heavy responsibility that comes with ultimate wisdom?